So we are back one more time in Chaos Head Noah as we continue the big fall into Nishiji Takumi's falling mental state. Nishijo Takumi's alma mater, Kitazawa Elementary School No. 2, was 5 minutes away from a privately operated train station. Yasuji-ban had the idea of talking to his old teacher, but when he called the school, he found they'd passed away. Instead, he opted to talk to the person he'd spoken to on the phone, the current head teacher, a man named Kamio. He and his partner had come here to do just that. It was a Saturday, and the school was closed. Ban and Suo were standing in front of the school building, looking at it. There was a very eye-catching picture drawn on its outer walls. Ban wasn't the artistic type, so it was beyond him what the thing might be. It looked like a spiral, but it changed into 7 different colours from top to bottom, so it also felt kind of like a rainbow. Ban waved his fan as he stared at it. His partner, Suo, pushed the call button on the gate. Ban slowly looked around. It felt like somebody was watching him. It was an unpleasant, clingy sort of gaze.
Am
I that cool? He struck a little pose. He looked stylish and cool, he thought.
Senpai, 何変なポーズしてるんすか?
Why are you posing like that? It's weird.
裏門の方に通用口があるんで、そっちに回ってくれって。
There's an entrance around the back they've asked us to use. Ban gave up on his pose and sighed. He started to walk. It didn't take long to find the teacher's office. The back gate led to the school's rear entrance, and a turn off the hallway inside took you there. There were, of course, no children inside the school. It may have just been the shiny linoleum, but the air felt cooler than it did outside. There were 3 teachers in the teacher's office. One of them stood up and bowed as the detectives entered. His rapidly greying hair was parted, and he had a pleasant smile on his face. This was Kamio. Ban and Suo brought out their IDs at almost precisely the same time, giving brief introductions before getting to the point. It was Suo's job to do the talking.
ここの卒業生である西條匠くんについて教えていただきたいんですが。
We'd like to hear what you can tell us about your former student, Nishiji Takumi.
彼のことは印象に残っています。私は担任ではなかったから詳しくとなると無理ですが、それでも構いませんか?
I remember him, yes. He wasn't in my class, so I can't tell you too many details. Will that be all right? Suo nodded and opened his notebook to start taking down a memo.
西條くんはどんな子だったんすか?
What kind of kid was Nishijo?
難しい子だと聞いていました。特殊だと。
He was difficult, I'm told. Special.
特殊?
Special?
本来なら他の生徒に混ざって勉強するのはとても困難な、病気を患っていたらしく。
This game better not go where I think it's going. I will not be happy. He had a sudden illness that would normally make it very difficult for him to mix with the other students.
具体的には?
How specifically?
そこまで私が言ってしまっていいのかどうか。ご家族なり医師なりに聞いていただけますか?
I'm not sure if it's okay for me to say. Would you please ask his family or his doctor? Almost all the schools were like this these days. They didn't want any trouble. It's also illegal without a warrant. They'd refused to do anything that could result in an angry phone call from a parent. Again, because it's illegal. It made the cops' jobs a lot harder. Yes, because it's illegal. Get a warrant.
担任の先生はなんで亡くなったんです?
What happened to his teacher?
事故です。遠足の最中、乗っていたバスが陥没した道路に。
An accident. During a field trip, the class's bus was going over a bridge when it collapsed.
あ、自分それ知ってるっす。ニュースでやってたっすよね。
Oh, I remember that. It was on the news.
子供たちは怪我をしただけで、幸い命は助かったのですが、
The kids were fortunately just injured. None of them died. But
斉藤先生だけが犠牲になってしまい、なんともやりきれない思いです。
Mr. Saito, unfortunately, was not so lucky. It's very unfortunate.
西条くんもその事故に巻き込まれた。
And Shijo was hurt in this accident as well. Cameo shook his head
あ
softly.
の子は当日欠席していて、バスには乗っていませんでした。
He was absent that day and didn't get on the bus.
出席の理由は
Why was he absent?
病が悪化したと聞いたような覚えがありますが、
I remember hearing that his illness took a sudden turn for the worse. Van vaguely remembered the incident too. He'd seen the media standing outside the house of the one boy who hadn't been injured for days on end, trying to get an interview. The boy had never shown himself,
あ
however.
れは悲しい事故だったんですよ。
It was a sad accident. For some reason, Cameo repeatedly seemed to put emphasis on the word accident. Having a quick chat with Grim before diving into ESO was becoming a daily routine of mine. We never talked about anything specific. We'd swap information about the latest Achan threads or talk about naughty stuff, or our latest favourite manga, or the anime we'd seen the other day. Stuff like that. Oddly enough, we didn't talk much about ESO. We do more than enough ESO chat when we were playing after this. Have you heard anything weird about the weird pranks lately? It's just something I heard. I don't know if it's really something people are doing, but they play weird noises on your cell phone. Do they say naughty things with a merry voice? Lol. What kind of H game is that? I mean, if that was it, I'd love to get pranked. So what kind of whose eyes are those, is it? Grin kept using that phrase. Instantly I felt sick. The sentence didn't even make sense. Was the phrase funny enough that he had to force it in everywhere? I didn't think so. If anything, it was stupid. But I couldn't start an argument until I'd asked him about the prank. I decided to just pull up with it for now. That'd be awful. Actually, it's Two Yarns. Two Yarns? That's a song, right? The one they play on crosswalks. Yep. And then suddenly it changes into this bzzz noise. And it's really, really loud. You ever heard of a prank like that? I mean, it sounds like something Atchanners would do. That strange noise had been left on my phone yesterday. I didn't know who was behind it, and it was pretty unnerving. So I decided to try and ask Grim. If it was just a prank, I could forget about it. Huh? Why wasn't Grim responding? Hello? You fall asleep? There was no answer. It was rare for Grim to pass out on me during a chat. It had never happened before, actually. But if it happened, it happened. I'd see him later in the ESO and I could talk to him then. Just was about to get up out of my seat. Beck, I didn't search on Achan about the prank you're talking about. Oh, was that what he was up to? But that would mean that even Grim didn't know about it. And he usually knew everything. Not just on Achan, but on the rest of the internet. Huh? So it must be. Somebody had a personal grudge against me then? I was starting to get really curious about who it could be, but I didn't have the courage to call him back. I still had the idea. If I knew the phone number, I could have somebody else call it for me. Maybe Nanami or Misumi. Those would be the two safest bets. No, Misumi was brainwashed by the demon girl. He wasn't a good choice. Nanami was our little sister, so it'd be easy to ask her. She'd get really mad later, probably. But that wasn't my problem. It was the least she could do after all the bullshit she put me through. And so thanks to Grim and ended the chat, promising to meet up with him later in the ESO. My stomach was starting to rumble. I was hungry. Did they have any instant ramen anywhere? I looked, but didn't find any. I'd have no choice but to go to the convenience store. Ew, outside. The sun had already set. I would have preferred not to be out at night if I could avoid it. Lately, only bad things have been happening at night. I headed to the convenience store, my feet moving faster than they usually did. It was Saturday, so normally I would have seen a bunch of people on the street. Today, it was empty. All the stores that would usually be open were closed. It's kind of strange. Maybe I'd forgotten what time it was. I thought it was 7 p.m, but maybe it was actually 2 a.m. or something. No way. Still, it was way too quiet. You couldn't hear any of the noises usually heard in this city. The town felt different somehow. I made it to the convenience store in front of the Shinston station. Even the area around the station was completely devoid of people. I was starting to get more than a little scared. And Lanso is a literal anagram of Lawson. A genuine Japanese store. You switch these letters around and you have a Japanese chain called Lawson. When something you expect to be there suddenly vanishes, it makes you feel like you've been sucked into some strange other world. Normally I avoided any interaction with other people, but today I longed to see somebody's face. I ran into the store. There should be at least a cashier here, I thought. I looked around. I'm going to go with the green for this one. There was nobody. No customers. No employees.
まさか。
No way. That was impossible, right? The cashier must just be in the back. If I took my stuff up to the register, they'd come out right away. I forced myself to take my time picking out a box meal from the refrigerated section. I even pretended to look at the manga magazines before finally putting my meal on the counter next to the cash register. It's going hazy, people. Nobody came out. Maybe there really was nobody here. Okay, if that was the case, I picked up the box meal and headed straight for the automatic doors. I stood in front of the door. It opened. I tried to go outside. Hold it! The cashier finally came out from the back. He was a gloomy, unimpressive-looking guy. Maybe a college student. He leaned over the counter and glared at me with empty, lifeless
お
eyes.
前、今万引きしようとしただろ。
You were trying to shoplift, weren't you? I sighed and headed back to the
あんた
register.
が出てこないからでしょ。
Well, you didn't come out at all.
すいません、居眠りしてました。
Sorry, I was sleeping. His bow to me was fake and accompanied by a mocking laugh. I snapped. This store was doing a terrible job of training its employees.
ねえ、当然タダで持って帰ってもいいよね。
Screw you. Of course, I can take this for free, right?
は？それとこれとは別じゃないですか。
Huh? Of course
あ
not.
んたの責任なんだから、あんたが代金立て替えろよ。
It's your fault, so you have to pay.
ふざけんなニート野郎。
Oh, shut up, you worthless neat.
この
You little... My hand flew out before I even knew it. A lightning-fast punch hit him right in the nose. He flew backwards with a pathetic screech, slamming into a shelf and falling to the ground. It was a beautiful punch, if I do say so myself.
すいません。
Sorry. He got on his knees and bowed to me, his nose bleeding and tears falling from his
お金は
eyes.
結構さ。だから帰ってください。
You don't need to pay, so please, just leave.
わかればいいんだよ。
Smart answer. I took 4 pieces of dorayaki from the stand near the register and walked over to the door,
二
satisfied.
度と来るかバカ。
You just lost yourself a customer. With a final awesome one-liner, I left the store. Several minutes had passed while I was lost in my delusion. There was no sign of any employee at all. And I'm kind of disappointed. I was half expecting some kind of like, I was expecting a better scene than that. I'm disappointed. In the real world, I'd never do any of that DQN League things I'd done in my delusion. But I wasn't as certain enough to call out for anyone either. I just stood there in the empty store, getting angry at the fact that I not put my phone into Do Not Disturb and disturbing the ambience of the recording. Pardon me while I sort that out, people. I wanted to believe that the cashier was just asleep, so I waited another 5 minutes. But there was still no sign of the cashier or anybody else. There wasn't even any sound. I finally got so scared, I just put the thing on the shelf and left. I came to the railway crossing right next to the station. I could see the Shinsen station platform clearly from here. There was no way a station platform could be empty, I told myself. It was just impossible. But of course, there was nobody there. I decided to wait for a train to come. If a train stopped at the station, people would surely get off. And even if nobody did, I could see somebody in the train as it went past. I waited 10 minutes, and there was no sign of any train. Now, you might all be thinking that that's not a long time to wait, but if this is set in central Tokyo in Japan, their trains are usually every 3 minutes. From something daft like 4 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the morning the following day. So unless it literally is the dead of night 2 a.m. like he said it was, this is very, very weird. I tried to tell myself that it might have been an accident or something that thrown the schedule off, but there still wasn't a single person on the platform. Only then did I realise the seriousness of the situation. It didn't make sense. This wasn't right. I decided to head to Shibuya Station. There was always somebody there. I was sure of that. The area around Shibuya Station was always busy, 24 hours a day. And that's pretty accurate because on the outside of Shibuya Station, you got the likes of the 109 crossing, the Hachiko statue, and a lot of the nightlife is based there. So you usually find people till well into the night in Shibuya. I couldn't take the fear anymore, so I started to run. I don't need to do that, great, carry on. I ran as fast as I could. Even when I started running out of breath, I still didn't stop. I wasn't sure if I'd ever run so hard in my entire life. As I ran, I wished it was all some awful dream, but it wasn't. My heart and lungs were in so much pain. I thought it'd explode. There was no way this pain could be just a dream. I was surprised at how intense my breathing was, but no matter how much air I took in, the pain didn't go away. I headed down Dogenzaka Hill and finally got within sight of the 107 building. By that point, my legs were barely moving. My body felt incredibly heavy, but I forced my legs to move forward. I didn't even have a strength left for looking around me. My entire consciousness was focused on getting me to Scramble Crossing, the symbol of Shibuya. Almost there. Just a bit more. I just had to make it past the 107. Then I'll be in the busiest place in Japan, the place where everyone mixes together when the walk sign changes. That's why it's called the Scramble. Scramble. Empty. So, for those of you who know, there is the famous public information rail car. There is the Hachiko statue. And there is the other entrance to Shibuya Station. And if you're a Persona 5 enjoyer, there is the bridge where the Phantom Thieves hang out. The whole of Scramble Crossing and Shibuya Station were empty. A world without sound. A world that was dead. The air around the crossing was always filled with a flood of sound, but today it was ruled by silence. All I could hear was the sound of my own panting. Impossible! I fell to my knees in the middle of the wide road. I couldn't take another step. But more than that, the shock had drained all the strength from my body. This is Shibuya, right? There was nobody to my left, or right, or my back, or front, anywhere. It was the busiest time of the week, 7 p.m. on a Saturday. What was going on here? This couldn't be happening. I closed my eyes and put my hands up to my head. This wasn't a dream, an illusion. I couldn't be real. Sure, I thought I wanted to live a quiet life, all by myself. I didn't want to get caught up in anything, or have anyone meddle in my plans. But that didn't mean I wanted to be the only person in the world. If there were no other people, who was going to pay my living expenses? Wow, what a parasite. That's the first thing you think of? If there were no other people, who was going to make the meals I got from the convenience store? If there were no other people, who was going to play ESO with me? If there were no other people... Sound. I heard a sound. It wasn't me. It was a sound someone else made. Someone was here. Someone was close. I felt saved. It was just random chance that the crossing looked empty. Nobody actually disappeared. I hadn't been left alone in the world. I was almost ready to cry from sheer relief. I turned toward the sound.
君は
Who are you? It was a boy in a wheelchair. He was silently sitting there, some distance from me, but still in the middle of the road. It was hard to figure out how old he was. If I went just off his height, I would have thought he was in elementary school. And is that alluding to him seeing himself as a kid, deluding the world around him? He had a hat pulled down over his eyes, making it hard to see his face. But
やっと
we
会えた
finally meet. The boy's voice was strangely clear. It was as if it was being whispered into my ear. I just found myself turning around to check if someone was behind me. But of course, nobody was.
これ、どうなってるんですか
What's going on here? I asked him.
どうして誰もいないのか
Why isn't anybody else here?
君は理由を知ってますか
Do you not know why?
知ってるよ
I do. His voice sounded young, but not like a
そ
child's.
れより
But more importantly,
僕のメッセージは受け取ってくれた
did you get my message? Message? I didn't know what he was talking about.
誰だ君は
Who are you? His wheelchair advanced forward, wheels turning just a little. It must have been an old chair, because it made a rusty creaking sound as it went.
その目誰の目
Whose eyes are those?
でしょ
Right? I wasn't sure what to think. Why had this boy suddenly said, "Who eyes are those?" to me, right here, right now? Who was he?
目覚めるんだ早く
Wake up. Soon.
出ないともっ
Otherwise,
とたくさんの人が死んじゃうことになるから
even more people will die.
君は一体
Who are you? I rubbed my eyes, wiping away my tears. Only then could I finally see his face. The boy wasn't a boy. His face was wrinkly, like an old man. His cheeks were caved in, his eyes sank deep into his skull. The white's cloudy, and he had no eyebrows. Yet his body was tiny as a
僕
child's.
は
I'm
将軍だよ
Shogun. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. My head felt like it had been hit by a hammer. The ground seemed to shake. No, it was my body that was shaking. I put a hand on the asphalt to support myself. What had he just said? Shogun. This was Shogun?
忘れないで
Don't forget,
君は逃げちゃいけない
you mustn't run. I looked up and saw that Shogun had already turned away from me. His wheelchair was creaking as he slowly disappeared. It didn't even occur to me to try and follow him, or ask more questions, or to punch him in the face for getting me caught up in this. I wasn't any good at any of that stuff. My head was starting to hurt. I felt aching in my temples. I stayed on the ground, trying to endure the pain. Take The silent world suddenly began to fill with static. Who was that voice? And then he's in the middle of the crossing with all the cars around him. Take The static began to change into a voice. Somebody was putting their hand gently on my shoulder.
邪魔なんだっつうの
Get out of the
何
way.
してんだろうね
What's his problem?
最近の若いもんは
Kids these
なん
days.
かのパフォーマンスじゃないの？
Yeah, some kind of street performance. Thank you. I looked up, still reeling from the headache. The demon girl, Rimi, was leaning over me and looking down into my eyes. Her eyes were clear and filled with life. Those eyes stared at me, and only me. And then there's this dude. Check him out. Photobombing. Literally staring right into the souls. There's no way they did that by design. Look at all these faces. Everyone's turning away, and then there's this guy. Right here. Staring right at us. Whoever this dude is, he's important. Because he's the only character, aside from Rimi, who's looking. Again. Once again, she's just shown up out of nowhere.
歩ける？歩いて。
Can you walk? Come on. She put her hands under my arms and tried to help me up. I screamed and pushed her away. Then I came to my senses and looked around. I was still in the middle of the road, but I wasn't alone anymore. There were people all around me, walking past me without the slightest bit of interest. Taku! Rimi seemed like she's about to cry. She looked at me.
今は私の言うことを聞いて。
For now, just listen to me.
夜だ
Stay away from me! I screamed, the aching in my head turning into a stabbing pain. I tried to fight through the pain and crawl away from her to put as much distance between her and me as possible.
お前だろお前が見せたんだお前の妄想だ
It's you, right? You made me see that! It was your delusion!
僕の心を支配して精神攻撃を
You control my mind! Did some kind of mental attack!
この悪魔め
You demon!
お前なんて剣で殺してやる
I'll kill you with my sword!
ベースに帰れば僕にはディソ
If I could just get back to base, I've got a D-sword! I felt a sudden shock on my cheek. It stung and started to feel hot. Rimi had slapped me. I don't need to bother with that one. I'll carry on. This time she was going to kill me. I tried to crawl away as fast as I could, but Rimi easily grabbed my hand. She pulled me close with a strength it was hard to believe a girl could have, and held me tight. Her soft body pressed against me gently. It was so warm, and I could smell the slightest hint of sweat. Oh. What? Her long, flowing hair tickled my
しっ
nose.
かりして。
Calm down. It was the last thing I expected her to say. I could feel the strength leave my body.
ここにいたら危ないよ。
It's dangerous to stay here. Her voice sounded a little sad. I couldn't tell if she was crying.
信号赤になっちゃってるから。
Look, the crosswalk signal's red. I wasn't sure what to think. Wasn't she here to kill me? Why was she saving me? Wasn't that hallucination of people disappearing from Shibuya something she'd forced me to see? Once I'd felt this gentle warmth from her, once she'd held me in her innocent arms, how could I still be sure? How could I stop myself from thinking that maybe Sakihata Rimi wasn't a demon after all? Was I just a fool? Was I falling for her tricks? The one thing I could be sure of was that I felt so safe and peaceful in her arms. What was this strange feeling? Rimi let go, then put her hands up to my cheeks and looked me in the face. Her eyes were a little red.
お願い。
Please,
今は私についてきて
just for now, follow me,
いい？
okay? I nodded. We were standing in the middle of a now empty crosswalk. People on both sides of the road were staring at us as they waited for the light to change. I could hear laughter starting to bubble up from within the crowd. The cars all had their headlights pointing at me and were starting to honk their horns. Rimi held my hand tightly and started to run toward the sidewalk. I followed along, letting her pull me forward. We managed to make it through the noise of the horns to the sidewalk. Rimi let out a sigh of relief and stopped. She was still holding my hand. Just touching her made me feel calmer and calmer. It made me want to give in to the feeling and stay like this forever. Remy turned toward me.
無事でよかったね。
I'm glad you're safe. She looked so happy. I couldn't believe that the look on her face might be a lie or an act. But
話してよ。
let me go. I'd thought of her as my enemy for so long. I'd thought of her as a demon. If I gave in, I'd cease to be me. That's how it felt, at least.
あ、ごめんごめん。
Oh, sorry. She let go.
それにしてもびっくりした。タクが道の真ん中でうずくまってるんだもん。
You surprised me, though. Just lying out there in the middle of the road like that.
信号が赤になった時はどうなることかと。
I was so worried when the light turned red. She sounded happy. I turned away. I started to push through the crowds and walk forward.
僕、帰る。
I'm going home.
じゃあ送るよ。具合悪いんでしょ。
Oh, then I'll walk you home. You're not feeling well, right? I could hear her chasing after me, but I shook my head. No.
タク。
Taku? The cheerfulness in her voice had vanished. I felt really bad, since she just saved me, so...
ありがとう。
Thank you. I just barely managed to squeak out the words. I certainly didn't think they'd end up merging all three task forces into one. Yasuji sighed bitterly to himself as he looked at the rows of detectives assembled in the Shibuya Station's large conference room. The Inokashira Line Shibuya Station bathroom murder, what the media had taken to calling Vampira, had pushed the Shibuya Police's forces' available manpower to its absolute limits. And with three bizarre murders in the same district, it was looking more and more likely that a single culprit was responsible for all of them. Some officers had suggested leaving the Cornelius Tower suicides to the Youth Crimes Division, but the media was treating them as part of New Gen. And they'd taken a lot of flack if it seemed like they were leaving it out. It was only natural that HQ would decide to bring the task forces together into one big team. Right now, the new, bigger group was going back over each of the cases individually. There was a big screen at the front of the room, showing slides of the crime scenes. Suwa had been assigned to give the briefing on them. He and Barn had been up all night frantically going through the case files for all four cases. Good luck, kid, Barn said to himself, resting his head in his palm.
コーネリアスタワー集団投身自殺事件の発生は9月7日っす。
The Cornelius Tower suicide group took place on September 7th.
ニュージェネとマスコミが故障している4つの事件の中では、一
This
番
was the
最近
first
発
of
生
the
してい
four
ます。
murder cases that the media referred to as the New Gen murders.
午後11時半ごろ、渋谷コーネリアスタワー屋上のヘリポートから男女5人が転落、全員死亡しました。
At around 11:30, a group of 5 boys and girls fell from the Cornelius Tower heliport. They all died on
5
impact.
人は全員未成年の高校生。男が3人、女が2人。ただし、5人のうち男女1人ずつだけが同じ学校なだけで、それ以外の3人はいずれも別の学校でした。
They were all minors, high school kids. 3 boys, 2 girls. 2 of them, a boy and a girl, went to the same school. The rest all attended different schools.
5人それぞれの爪の間にわずかな肉片が残っており、手のひらに引っかき傷があったことが司法解剖で判明しました。
Autopsies showed that they all had small fragments of flesh under their nails and scratch marks on their palms.
そこから5人は互いに手をつないだ状態で転落したと推測されます。
We can conclude from this that they likely held hands as they fell. Or they were scratching and have defensive wounds.
屋上には遺書らしきものはなし。
There was no sign of any suicide note left behind on the roof.
被害者5人は学校帰りに待ち合わせてコーネリアスタワーへ向かったようです。
The 5 of them seem to have met after school and headed to Cornelius
な
Tower.
お、事件性があることを示す根拠としては、コーネリアスタワー屋上が関係者以外立ち入り禁止であったことが挙げられます。
As for the question of whether this was a homicide, it's worth noting that the Cornelius Tower roof is off limits to visitors.
事件があった時間、屋上への扉は施錠されており、その扉のドアノブに被害者5人の指紋は付着してませんでした。
At the time of the incident, the door to the roof was locked, and no fingerprints from the victims were found on the doorknob.
また、5人の遺品からも 扉の鍵は見つかっていません。
None of the deceased had a key on their bodies when they'd been found either.
このことから被害者以外のその第三者が扉の鍵を持っており、事件前
This implies a third party other than the group was at the scene. Our current assumption is that this third party had the key to the door and locked the door and left either before or after they jumped. That's a really clumsy sentence to read. That's really clumsy.
コーネリアスタワーのホテル従業員全員への聞き取り調査は終了。ほぼ全員にアリバイがありました。
We questioned every employee at the Cornelius Tower Hotel. Almost all of them had an alibi. We're now talking to the employees of the companies that are located in the tower.
被害者たち5人には今のところ自殺する理由は見つかっていません。
None of the 5 victims have any motive for suicide that we've been able to find.
家族、友人、学校の教師など5人中4人の関係者が口を揃えて自殺する理由などないと断言しています。
We have testimony from the family, friends, and teachers of 4 of the 5 that they would have absolutely no reason to kill themselves. Yes, that's right. I'm not censoring myself. Fuck you, YouTube. The slide changed, moving to the second case. The murder of the college kid and unborn baby under the Shibuya Station tracks.
続いて、通称妊娠男事件についてですが、
As for this case, which they are calling the pregnant man,
事件発生は9月19日。通称集団ダイブ事件から12日後。
it took place on September 19th, 12 days after what's been termed the group dive.
第一発見者は現場近くのカラオケ店店員。遺体発見は午前5時前後。
It was a worker at a local karaoke place who discovered the body. They found it at approximately 5 a.m.
被害者は渋谷区在住の大学3年生、近衛千鶴21歳。
The victim was one Konoe Chizuo, a third-year college student in Shibuya. He was 21 years old.
発見された時にはすでに死亡してました。
The victim was deceased at the time he was found.
死亡推定時刻は遺体発見の約4時間前、19日の午前1時頃です。
Estimated time of death is around 1 a.m. on the 19th, 4 hours before the body was discovered.
遺体は腹部が不自然に大きく膨れ上がっており、中から胎児が発見されました。
The victim's stomach was abnormally bloated. An unborn baby was found within it.
司法解剖の結果、被害者は生きたまま腹部を何者かに切開され、胃の中に胎児を入れられたようです。
An autopsy revealed that someone had opened up the victim's chest while he was still alive and put the baby inside his stomach.
胎児はすでにその時点で亡くなっていたと思われます。
The infant was likely deceased at the time.
被害者が死亡したのは腹部を縫合された後。縫合した部分をかきむしったり、縫合糸を一部引きちぎった形跡が見られました。
The victim would have died after his belly was sewn back together. We found indications that he ripped at the stitches and torn some of the thread. Yes, he tried to tear his own chest open. That's quite grim.
胎児は妊娠8ヶ月ぐらいの状態で、母親の体から帝王切開で取り上げられたと考えられます。
So they should be hunting for a doctor then. Or a surgeon of some kind. The baby would have been in its 8th month of development, and we believe it was removed from the mother's body via C-section.
胎児の母親については今のところ見つかってません。その生死についても不明です。
For now, we know nothing about the mother, not even whether she's dead or alive.
DNA 鑑定の結果、胎児と被害者には血縁関係はありませんでした。
DNA analysis revealed that the baby and victim had no genetic relationship.
ちなみに胎児の血液型は B 型、被害者の血液型は A 型です。
For what it's worth, the baby had blood type B, the victim had blood type A. Sue paused to take a breath. Talking so much had tired him out, it looked like. Giving a presentation in front of this many older detectives was probably nerve-wracking too.
次に第3の事件、丸山町貼り付け殺人事件です。
Now on to the third incident, the crucifixion murder at Mayarmacho. There was a slight pause before a crucified slide came up.
これが現場写真です。
This is a shot of the
事
scene.
件発生は9月29日。被害者は太田久志56歳、都東大学教授。
This one took place on September 29th. The victim was one Hisashi Ura, age 56, a professor at the Todai University.
第一発見者は 現場のすぐ近くのアパートに住む男性。
The man who lived in a nearby apartment was the one to find the body.
被害者の死因は絞殺でした。殺害された後で10本程度の釘を使って貼り付けにされていました。
Cause of death was strangulation. After death, he was nailed to the wall with 10 or so stakes. Now, the reason for that is that the kanji for the number 10, when you write it in kanji, is literally a cross. So that's why they've gone with 10 for that, because that's the kanji Ju.
見ての通り、遺体には外傷はほとんどありません。
As you can see, there are a few wounds on the body itself.
釘についても、貼り付けは一部肉体を貫通しているものもありましたが、基本的には衣服を通して貼り付けられている状態です。
Well, some of the stakes did go through flesh. They were primarily nailed through his clothes.
マスコミでは、貼り付け、血の惨劇などと謳われてますが、出血は全くなし。
The media is calling it the bloody crucifixion, but there was no blood loss whatsoever in the victim. Now that's interesting, of course, because when our character is alleged to have seen the murder, not only did he see Remy with blood, but he saw blood on the corpse as well. So there's a false memory in play here.
釘はドイツのクロイツナーゲル社が販売している特徴的な長い十字架のような杭です。
The nails were cross-shaped, sold by a German nominee named Kreuznagel.
犯人が十字架型をあえて選んだということから、宗教的な側面からも捜査を進めてます。
The choice of a cross-shaped nail is a distinctive one, and we're currently looking into any religious connections.
事件の起きた21時から21時半の間に、現場周辺で壁に杭を打ちつける音が数十分続いていたという証言が複数得られました。
The incident occurred between 9 and 9:30 p.m., and we have reports from residents of that they heard sounds of the nails being pounded into a wall for at least 10 to 20 minutes.
被害者の死亡推定時刻がほぼそれと同じ時間であることから、おそらく被害者は現場かそのすぐ近くで殺害されたと思われます。
Since this matches the estimated time of death, we can assume the victim was killed at the spot, or failing that, somewhere nearby.
また信憑性は怪しいですが、事件現場で私立水明学園の女生徒を見たという証言も上がってます。
We also have an unreliable report of a sighting of a female Suime Academy student in the area.
最後に、井の頭線渋谷駅トイレ殺人事件。
Lastly, the Inokashira Line Shibuya Station bathroom murder, aka Vampira. Now, there's actually a message on the wall there that I can't read. This is, and then something. Because you got like, Rono and then Dano. I think that's the kanji for eye. So something about the eyes, basically, is what's being said there.
事件発生は10月10日。遺体発見は午前5時半ごろ、駅員が発見しました。
This one happened on October 10th. It was found at approximately 5:30 a.m. A station employee was the first to find
被
it.
害者の身元は今のところ不明。身元を示すような遺留品は一切ありませんでした。
We know nothing about the victim for the moment. They didn't have any kind of identification with them.
死亡推定時刻は前日の午前10時から午後6時の間。
Time of death could be anywhere from between 10 to 6 p.m. the day
遺
prior.
体の血液はすべて抜かれており、まるでミイラのような状態で放置されていました。
The body was drained of blood and looked something like a mummy.
ご存知の通り、この写真が何者かによって撮影され、遺体発見より15分ほど前にインターネットのオークションに出品されており、
As you're aware, this photo was taken by an unknown party and uploaded to an internet auction site approximately 15 minutes before the body was found. Van grimaced a little as he listened to the explanation. Was this the killer's way of saying that death had become fashion or something? And hey, that's the end of the chapter. So while this is a little earlier than planned, that's actually a perfect place for us to stop. So we're going to pick up the fourth chapter in the next recording around here of Chaos Head Noah. And until then, be sure to check out youtube.com/@ChrisJC1985, where he's recently finished the Star Wars Outlaws playthrough and has got some retro Disney classics coming, which I'm looking forward to seeing. You can also go and check out Queen3210, youtube.com/@Queen3210, who has recently reactivated her Phoenix Wright series. Finally, we're going to be moving on in Phoenix Wright. Do go check that out. Also got many other playthroughs, including Final Fantasy IV, where I am a guest voiceover for it. And there is many other series out there, such as Steins Gate, such as Danganronpa. You got the likes of the Mass Effect trilogy, and many, many more. Please do go check those people out. Like, share, subscribe, comment. Thank you all very, very much for watching. And are we the dreamer? Or is this somebody else's dream?